How's it going?
There he is. What's up?
Nice to meet you.
Wow, Ashton
Kind
Forbes,
of in
man.
person, virtually, Gary. Thank you for having me on your show. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, no, it's actually really cool to have you with me here. Um, I first came across your work. I think I was watching, um, I think it was like Redacted or something, and they were covering your topic, and that's like the first time I saw that this had kind of crossed over into like the conservative media space. And I mean, that was a really good segment that they had you on and really broke it down. And I was freaking hooked from that moment on. And then I started digging, I subscribed to your channel, started like following you on X and like listening to all your podcasts and like you're like having like martinis and stuff with your live crew. And like it was really cool. It was really cool. So um we could talk. I do want to do a whole like MH370 thing at some point with you.
Sure.
Um, I mean, the only reason I haven't is because I feel it's like totally saturated now. Like you've been everywhere, but I don't know how much my audience has really picked up on it. I've encouraged them to follow you. I've encouraged them to go and check out your channel and your investigations, which I find to be totally fascinating. And then there's the whole other side of people who are like trying to debunk it. You had these debunkers that were playing games with all the framing and getting people to try to recreate it, and like just how you took those people apart was just fascinating. And yeah, I've always been, you know, I always like love the idea of free energy and hydrogen powered cars. And I own a DeLorean time machine. I was sharing pictures with my car. I'm total sci-fi nerd. And but then like I'm like occasionally I'll tag you in an X post whenever I see something that I'm like paging Ashton Forbes, like we need Ashton Forbes on this right away. And now I see you're starting to post about all these drones, and you have some perspective on that. You went on Emerald Robinson, her show, which completely triggered me with respect to her framing techniques that she was using.
Hold on, let me fix
Um,
my framing here. How's that? Is that good?
Yeah, don't do that to me. Don't do that. Don't do that to me, please, please, please. Okay, so enough of me. I want to give you the floor for a minute because like people are freaking out about all these drones, and you got congressmen who are saying that they're coming off the sea from Iran. You got the Pentagon saying they don't know anything about it. You got DHS hosting town hall meetings, and the state representatives are getting furious. I mean, no one's getting answers, and you're getting a lot of crazy video coming from all different angles. Some are planes, some are possible drones, some are orbs, which is one of your main focuses of investigation. And then in this post now, plasma propelled drone performance parameters. I tried reading through some of it, but it's like way over my head. So I want to give you the floor and just let us have it. What do you think's going on up in those skies?
Yeah, and this isn't all about MH370, but people have to understand the background for me in terms of jumping into this science was those videos. I know people think that they're probably fake. I'd think they're fake too if I was just coming into it and didn't know all the background around it. But I've been teaching myself the science for over a year now, which includes electric engineering, quantum mechanics, and now getting into plasma physics. If you guys are not familiar with Salvatore Cesar Pais, you should check out his work. He's the guy that has these UFO patents, but actually he's a Navy and Space Force engineer. I've interviewed him multiple times. You can check out my interviews with him on my YouTube channel at JustXAshton. Now, in a lot of his interviews, he said that people should be thinking in terms of plasma. The reason they should be thinking in terms of plasma with respect to these anti-gravity type properties that the UFO community is always talking about is that plasma can store far more charge than any material we could come up with. Any other material, wires that we make wires out of, they're going to melt before they reach charge densities that become really extreme that we would need in order to produce anti-gravity. Why am I bringing this up? Because basically what I'm saying to people is that the United States military and primarily defense contractors, we call them private military contractors, PMCs for short, they have absolutely cracked anti-gravity. And they are far more advanced on fusion research, which uses plasma, than what we understand from the public perspective. In fact, I would go so far as to say that hot fusion, this idea that we're just going to heat up this plasma and we're going to get free energy out of it, that's never going to work. Trying to do it with temperature is never going to make it happen. Instead, cold plasmas are where the secret's at. And it turns out this guy named Ken Shoulders in the 80s, you can look him up if you want, discovered something called exotic vacuum objects. He found out that these cold plasmas have very high charge densities, and they have this weird property where they self organize and they become self sustaining. What do they self organize into? A sphere, a ball of plasma. And Ken Shoulders was partners with a guy named Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff is a legendary name in the UFO community. He started a remote viewing in the 70s, and then in the 80s, he switched over and started researching zero point energy. Now, this is not a pseudoscientist. This guy got his PhD from Stanford. He's written quantum mechanics books. He developed the first tunable laser. This guy has written 20 or so papers on zero point energy explaining all the gaps in physics that we have today. And he has a patent of his own, and his patent's called communication system. And you go, that's a weird name for a patent. It turns out it's a quantum communication system, otherwise known as a gravity communication system. And if you look his patent up right now, you'll find that it is useful for communicating through plasma where radio frequencies would normally bounce off. So if you add this up, and one more factor I want to throw in real quick is that our hypersonic spy planes, how they achieve hypersonic speed. You've heard this hypersonics from Putin and stuff like that. They use a plasma sheath in front of them. So they have this plane and they have a plasma sheath, and this reduces the drag on the plane. That's how they can achieve those speeds without melting or falling apart. Now, think about this. We had those planes in the 60s, the SR-71. At some point, I hypothesized that we realized, why have a plane at all? Why have a person in there? That's the spam in the can. It's a liability. Instead, just turn the plasma into a drone and then communicate with it, and you can remote control it around. And if you were to look at it, it would probably just look like a ball of light or a ball of energy. So I am strongly convinced that we have plasma orbs that we can remote control and float around that defy gravity, and that Salvatore Caesar Pius's patents, when you add them all up, inertial mass reduction for a transmedium craft, gravitational wave device, also high temperature superconductor, and magnetically confined plasma fusion reactor. When you add these up, you go, wait, that equals a ball of plasma just floating around. And he works for the US Navy and the Space Force. So, to the point about these drones, if we didn't know what these were, we would have shot these things down weeks ago. Are you kidding me? These things could have warheads on them, weapons on them. They could be suicide bomb drones like in the Ukraine. We'd have shot them down. The United States government knows exactly what they are. We've got spy satellites staring down at every corner of the globe in infrared that we can pick this stuff up. So the fact that they're not saying that they know leads us to conclude it must be them. Go ahead.
Okay. So I saw one of your ex posts, and you had remarked that this was one of the clearest visuals that you had seen. Someone had done like a 200x magnification through a camera. My personal opinion, I thought it was garbage. I mean, because I'm looking at all these videos, right? And I see it looks like when somebody zooms in through a raindrop on a window, and it just becomes like they zoom in on a point of light, and it just looks like some garbage. Like I don't know. Like some of these things, they've got FAA regulated lighting. Some of them are clearly passenger jets. Some are small passenger planes. But then you have these bizarre things that do look like orbs. Like there was a video we just presented that it was in Miami. There was some kind of a light orb that was over the ocean, and it went right past a building in Miami. And I slowed it down, and if everyone wants to go and watch, we'll post the video of the reporting. But you could see the light of this orb reflecting off of the building. So it wasn't something that was reflected off some glass. So what? How many types of orb situations are you seeing 'Cause I mean, we're all on different parts of X and we're all seeing different things. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of disinformation, there's misinformation. I think there's hoaxers out there taking advantage of the hysteria for clicks. I think people are sending up their own drones and throwing crazy lights on it and making people go nuts. People are shooting at drones. They're shooting at things out of the sky now. We just saw the video. So, what percentage of this do you think is actual, like, our tech, our plasma orb tech, and what percentage is just a bunch of garbage?
Yeah, basically, I've seen almost zero videos that are compelling to me. So, to your point, even that video that I shared, that was just the best one I've seen. Most of the videos I think are absolutely airplanes. And I think that the UFO community has gotten in
Yeah.
full confirmation bias mode where they think they're like, oh, no, this must be UFOs. So now they come up with an explanation that the UFO is shape shifting into an airplane. It's like, no, I'm looking at red and green navigation lights. I've flown on a lot of airplanes, right?
Yeah.
Somebody shared a time lapse of satellites that went viral on various other people's posts. And the reason why you're not seeing me share this stuff is because it's clearly not anomalous. And this stuff just muddies the waters for the most part.
Mhm.
So basically, none of the videos I've seen for the most part are compelling at all. And that's what I'm pushing as well, is that say what's really compelling is that clip that just came out like an hour
Mm.
ago, where they're saying that this sheriff or like actual law enforcement is seeing stuff coming out of the water. Now that's really interesting because one of Salvatore Pais' patents is trans inertial mass reduction for a trans medium craft. These orbs can traverse through space,
Wow.
air, and water as if it's makes no difference whatsoever because they actually just change the permittivity of the region of space in which it creates this plasma orb. It creates like a natural field of plasma essentially. So what we really need, honestly, is we need less Nokia phone videos of blurry crap because that's just muddy in the water. We need the military or
Yeah.
intelligence communities to show us SIBR's video, the space-based infrared system. We need stuff in infrared and thermal. The reason why the military is recording
Mm.
in infrared, forward-looking infrared, otherwise known as FLIR, like those 2017 DoD Navy videos, is because this stuff doesn't show up very well in optical. If I'm looking at a ball of light and I look at it with my camera, it's just going to look like a ball of light. It's going to look just like a star. So to your point about the video I shared,
Yeah.
yeah, that could just be Sirius or some other star that's out there that's not focused. Absolutely. How do you tell the difference? You can't in the optical
Yeah.
spectrum. You need thermal and infrared. And that's why, not to dig too much into it, why the MH370 videos are so crucial because you've got one infrared satellite video and you've got one thermal video,
Yeah.
and it gives so much information about what you're looking at. We need something like that to be disseminated from the government to the public. Is Joe Biden and his deep state intelligence community going to do that? Probably not. No. So what I'm telling you guys is, yeah, a lot of the stuff out there is just airplanes for the most part, but it does seem like something is going on. And we do ourselves a big disservice when we share all these airplane videos because then the people that are kind of on the outside looking in are just going, these people are cranks. They're just sharing videos of things with
Yeah.
navigation lights on them. We need something that's high quality.
Yeah. Yeah, we have yet to see that, and I try to do my best when I present these videos, and break it down in like reality. Like, look, guys, these are Japanese lanterns. Here's a whole swarm of Japanese lanterns going up at night, for someone's birthday, right? And everyone's like, "Oh my God, look what's happening on the coast of California!" It's like, no, dude, that's a swarm of Japanese lanterns. Relax. Um, and but the level of hysteria that we're seeing now. See, I was listening to this tangentially. I'm like, okay, whatever, drones, whatever. Like, I didn't really care. But then someone brought to my attention, a friend of mine. She's like, listen, you should probably look into this. And as the further I looked into it, I said, my goodness, these people in New Jersey are freaking out. And then the Department of Homeland Security goes down, has a town hall meeting, and they have no answers, literally no answers for these people. And then there's a congressional hearing, and then you have the congressman, and then you have the Pentagon, and like it keeps going up the food chain. And you say, well, maybe we should have the government come out and say something. And I mean, they're never going to tell us what's going on. Like, I think this is, we're almost at Trump's presidency. and the level of hysteria. Like, my question is, what else? What's going on in the background? That
Yeah.
while we're all looking in the sky in New Jersey, right? What's the left hand doing over here?
Oh, absolutely.
What do
I
you
think
think?
that, this Congress has no idea. I know that for a fact. They have no clue at all. And they don't understand the technology at all either. Eric Davis just
Oh,
released
hang
an
on, wait. Well, you bring up Congress. Let me just
sure.
roll it back for 1 second, because Van Drew is like, oh, it's Iranian drones of a mothership, and then he posts satellite images of the Iranian mothership plane, satellite boat, whatever, missing, and then we see these flight radar of a of a flight path out in the middle of the ocean, circling something. And other people are saying, you know what? They're just trying to get us to go to war with Iran. They want another excuse. And then you have Congress saying, or not even Congress, but you have um, Mayorkas, and then you have um, the DNI. They're all saying, well, Congress needs to act on this. Like, really? Like, we're going to wait for Congress to go ahead and give them more power? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Congress has no idea for sure. Like I've actually spoken to congressmen as well, and they don't understand technology at all. Like Eric Davis is Hal Puthoff's right hand man on his third party company. These guys have had work in black projects. They're black project engineers. They've got top secret compartmentalized access, potentially access to special access programs, and they've just straight up said they would never testify because it would break their NDAs. They would go to prison. So we know the United States government is working on technology that we would consider exotic. Now, does it necessarily have to come from aliens? No, not necessarily. We could have figured it out. I don't know. So they have that technology. That Iran mothership thing was nuts. I actually think that came directly from Chris Mellon. Emerald mentioned this on the spot that I did with her as well. He's the only one I can find out there in this whole UFO community. He's one of these UFO disclosure people. Like for your audience, because I know this is probably a conservative audience, what you need to know is that a lot of these UFO disclosure people are all left wing nut jobs and they are full TDS. They hate
Oh,
Donald
wow.
Trump. And it should really make you question their motives. They also want you to believe that all this stuff is aliens and that humans could never understand it. It's just beyond our understanding. And then I go talk to Salvatore Pais, and he's got these patents, and he goes, no, like humans can figure. He told me straight up in the interview, humans can understand this, and we can figure it out. So end of the day, you look at this, and I can't come to any. I want to come to a conclusion that's more grounded in like a lot of facts and reason. But the only thing I can come up with is this is our intelligence community playing a game with our own people, a Project Bluebeam, so to speak. And that's a weird theory, but what if they're just doing this because Trump is coming out and he's saying we're going to replace the DNI. We're going to have Tulsi Gabbard become director of national intelligence. We're going to have Kash Patel come in and become the FBI director. And this deep state people that have been in power since like Obama, right? Especially if Trump didn't out them in 2016, they're scared. And they're scared because they're hiding technology from the American people that could be free energy, gravity manipulation, they could have been committing crimes to hide this technology. And now, if that information has to get passed on to people like Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, now that's a risk. What if those people don't see it the same way? And they're going, no, we should tell the people about this. And we should tell the people about the crimes that we've been committing. That is scary. So maybe this is like an intimidation move where you say, we've got this crazy tech.
Intimidation move. Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of it's a splinter theory that's out there because truthfully, I don't know. But what I do know is they know what these things are, 100%, no doubt. They know what these things are. Somebody up there, high up, the Joe Biden's director of national intelligence, Avril Hines, people should be saying her name. That's the person people should be asking for answers. The director of national intelligence is over the
Wow.
CIA, the NRO, the NGA. These are the people that control the satellites. We have the most advanced spy satellite surveillance in the entire planet. So people should be asking her, not the FBI. The FBI doesn't know shit. They're just basically looking at videos on the internet like you and I are doing. And they're going, that's an airplane, right?
Yeah.
And that's why this
You know,
whole
you bring
thing
up the
for money. Go ahead.
National Reconnaissance Office, and I've actually been there twice. Years ago, I helped somebody who was kidnapped by well, arrested by the Canadian authorities. He was tortured, and he was an American citizen. He was tortured in a Canadian prison. I helped him get some visibility for his case, and as a show of thanks, he ended up remarrying a woman who worked at the NRO. And because I asked this guy, I said, "Tell me, prove your case. Like, how do I know you're not just pulling my leg?" So he starts sending me documents, and in one of the documents, it had his wife's email address, and it said nro.mil, and I freaked out, and I said, "What are you doing? Who are you?" And eventually he invited me to a chief master sergeant's dinner, to a luncheon for this retirement. And I walk in there with my wife with this big long black leather trench coat, and I'm surrounded by all these NRO agents, and there's all these satellites like in these. Yeah, you got to go through the security perimeters to go into the building, and I'll never forget. And the one like a big soffit over this main lobby, it said in big letters, it said, "Silence is their only defense." And it was like, and all these old satellites that they had used, and then a long hallway with all these directors of the NRO that go back to the 1950s because it was a black project for so long. And it was wild to be there. And then we actually went there a second time for a Christmas party. It was the big Washington D.C. Christmas party, tuxedos, everything, and we are just getting smashed. And I'm hanging out with like CIA, FBI, NRO. I'm dancing on the dance floor, and everyone's getting these like fake poker chips, right? And my buddy's like, "We got to go in the elevator to go down to the basement." And he's like, "Just don't worry about the elevator though, because it's designed to incinerate you if you are like trying to steal secrets." Now, I don't know if he was pulling my leg or not, but he actually told me that he was at another dinner, and he was sitting next to some like NRO scientist who was drunk off his ass, and he was just running his mouth about aliens and they're real and they have them and it's all true. So before I get to the point in going into the basement of the NRO, which was bizarre, I went the first time we were there. We went to the gift shop. Okay, we go to the gift shop of the freaking National Reconnaissance Office, and you know what they have in the gift? There's a gift shop. You can buy like CIA coffee mugs and sweater. I had like an NRO T-shirt, but like it's like an inside joke. They have all these alien plushies. You can buy these plushies that are like little alien heads, like on the shelves, like little alien magnets and stuff. Like it's a big freaking joke to these people. Um,
Well, that's how
I'll
they
never
minimize.
forget it. I did all my Christmas. What's that?
That's how they minimize it, though, as well, is that they make a joke out of it,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
how they protect
yeah.
this.
They
This
make a joke out of it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, we went down to the basement of the NRO, and there was a band doing karaoke, and I was so wasted. I was drinking so much, and I was singing Gloria in the basement of a top secret military facility with cinder block walls. As all these like government agents are playing poker, like for charity on the ground. It was crazy. Anyway, sorry, total side note, but you brought up the National Reconnaissance Office, and I thought you'd enjoy that story.
Well, I've got one for you. So, well, first of all, I want to say too is if you don't believe the plasma drone thing, I want you to know China does believe. That was the point of that post I made about that plasma drone thing. I've never seen a paper like that was so open. It's just like, propulsion for a plasma drone. You're like, what does that mean? But if you understand in the context of
Yeah.
our spy planes and the plasma sheaths, it starts to make a lot of sense. Sal Pais as well. I correspond with him occasionally. He told me to look at who was referencing his fusion reaction patent, and you realize it's a bunch of Chinese teams of Chinese, not like one person. It's like 7 Chinese people that are all researching. China is taking this stuff very, very seriously. And I've had a lot of people just like you with that same kind of story that they've told. One, my favorite was that somebody said like they were really good friends with somebody who was relatively high ranking military person. And they would never really talk about, our stuff. But one time after like 15-year relationship with this person, they get really wasted and they get a phone call from them and they're just drunk as hell. Right. And they come out and they basically say, we have teleportation technology. Like the public has no idea. And can you imagine like keeping a secret like that? Like it must just eat at you all the time, or like, we've got
Yeah.
something that just literally melt people's minds. And we've got that kind of technology behind the scenes. part of the way that they've been able to keep this stuff secret is that it's so unbelievable to the public that they just, even if you told the truth, they don't believe you. They just don't believe you. They're just like, no, that can't be possible, can it? And this is part of the reason too why it's so dangerous, in my opinion, to keep it secret, because this kind of stuff is literally going to institutionalize people. When people realize that we can actually pull off a wormhole teleportation, I think that actually the conservative people are going to be easier to adapt to it, because it will show that our universe is a construct and all constructs have a creator. So people that are religious and what have you will be able to adapt to this relatively quickly. It's the people that are
Well, when
wearing
you like,
masks.
well, that's why it was so easy for me to understand your MH 370 breakdown was because it I don't know, I never heard it put that way, but you really made it easy for me to understand it, about how the plasma balls, how they rotate, they create the wormhole, and they actually can take that plane and put it wherever they want it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it was very easy for me to understand. And I want everybody who's watching this, I want them to search you up. I want them to go to your YouTube channel. I mean, you've done a lot of interviews, and I think the redacted one was the one that did it for me. So I think that's a good starting point. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
I'm
really
going back
makes
on
sense
that
what
to
you
talk
talk
about free
about.
energy next week, by the way. So it probably will drop in a few weeks. But, so just real quick on that front, the reason why these orbs converge in that video, it's like magnets jamming them together. But in this case, those orbs of plasma, like I said, can hold charge that is exponentially magnitudes more powerful than anything that we could do with normal materials. And this gives them an
Mhm.
extremely powerful electromagnetic charge. And then when you jam them together, it's like taking two very powerful magnets of the same polarity and jamming them together. And what Julian Schwinger, who won the Nobel Prize in 1965 for quantum electrodynamics, showed, and that what Sal Pais's Pais effect says, is that basically there's a ceiling on our reality. And if your energy increases exponentially and you hit that ceiling, now you've created this wormhole, just a rip in reality, basically. And you can just go right through it. And then for the people to say, oh, free
Wow.
energy is stupid, like we've literally been brainwashed into thinking that free energy is impossible. And what I tell people is, well, is solar power and wind power impossible? No, those things are producing energy with less input because they have an outside input. An outside wind is being inputted into the system. The light is being inputted into the system. This is exactly the same as 0 point energy, which is a quantum mechanical phenomenon that says that even if I have a pendulum and it stops, on the quantum mechanical level, it's always still jiggling. There's always still a little bit of energy there. And if you can extract that energy and amplify it, now you've got a new input. It's not wind, it's not solar, it's just the energy of the fabric of our reality that you tap into. So if there is UFOs that
Yeah.
are hovering around like
Wild
this and
stuff.
defying gravity, what's the energy source? There's no SpaceX rockets on this thing anywhere, you know? So the Black Project engineers, the Lockheed Martins and what have you, they've figured this stuff out like decades ago, and they probably already have free energy devices. In fact, at this point in 2024, they might have been able to turn it into a microchip where you can just like put it in your phone and this phone would just never run out of energy anymore. Like that's how far we might be advanced at this point. And you think, holy shit, that's like 100
Well, just
years.
like when you look at like the Tesla, Wardenclyffe, device that he had, and Westinghouse goes, where do I put the meter, right? I mean, Tesla was ready to give that free energy to everybody, and they couldn't harness it. And that's the only way they can control us is through energy, is through these archaic systems of oil and the internal combustion engine. Of course, they function, they work. I mean, it's a system that just continually feeds into the system itself, the greater system of control. But I don't think they're ever going to unlock those things for us. And the only way for us to be able to um, exercise it is if we do it individually. I mean, years ago when I would look at like Stan Meyer's water car, I would I showed my uncle who builds racing engines, and I mean, my uncle went ahead and he recreated a complete hydrogen splitting system in his garage, with all these like copper tubes and water, and like I went there and I saw him fire this thing up, and I saw the hydrogen shooting right out, and this massive tank he was making it in his freaking garage, and I think that's really the only way we're going to be able to harness this stuff individually. But the minute you get that close to the sun is the minute they come in, and your wings get melted off by the powers that be. And look what they did to Stan Myers. He was poisoned or had a heart attack after he was in that restaurant. But I think that with the flow of information that we have now at our fingertips through these phones, through X, and through different platforms, it's a lot harder to keep that Pandora's box closed. So there is hope, I think. What are your thoughts before we go?
Yeah, X has honestly given us a platform we didn't have before. I mean, the left wing was censoring every single social media platform before. Elon Musk bought X. I'd have been banned on X under old Twitter within minutes. I got banned on Reddit, and just for talking about free energy. Just for talking about free energy. In fact, I stopped. I know somebody that has a magnetic motor because based on this idea of there being an ether or 0 point energy, magnetic motors can produce over unity free energy. And I stopped doing it for some of the same reasons, because I look and I realize, holy crap, a lot of people have already done this, like Stanley Meyer, like John Searle, like Tom Bearden. Like, there is a lot of people, and some of them put all the schematics online, everything that people say you should do that's all been done before. These people get disappeared. A lot of them just die of mysterious circumstance. And I went, the issue isn't showing that that's making a device. That's not the issue. They don't never let you go to market with it. The issue is people need to understand that it's possible, and then we'll change our entire civilization. Stanley Meyer with his water powered car, I think he figured out the idea of negative energy, where the water molecules, the hydrogen and oxygen, just break apart. Like, we don't have to force them apart. They just fall apart with negative energy. And then you can use that to power your engine. That's what he was doing. Tesla understood this more than anyone. In fact, he understood it before quantum mechanics was even a thing. That's why he called it radiant energy. And he knew this energy was out there to be tapped into. Now, this doesn't mean that Einstein was entirely wrong, but what it does mean is that we have room to grow in our understanding of general
Yeah.
relativity and physics. So thank you for having me on your show, Gary. This has been awesome.
Yeah, cool. Definitely want to have you back on, and hopefully we can get some answers to what's flying up over our heads in New Jersey. So thanks again, Austin.
Take it easy.